AC filters are considered a ticking time bomb by many. Call now for a free legal consultation at 800-261-4118. There are no fees unless you get a settlement. Since 2005, there have been thousands of injuries associated with IVC filters. You must protect your legal rights. Call 800-261-4118 now to see if you may be eligible to file a claim. Time restrictions may apply. Call 800-261-4118. That's 800-261-4118. Again, 800-261-4118.
I'm Reverend Peter Preble, host of Faith in America on WCRN 830 AM. On Faith in America, we hold conversations at the crossroads of faith and society. Faith in America, Sunday mornings at 6 a.m., right here on WCRN.
Okay, Mr. and Mrs. Lavache, you're all set with your mortgage, and I assume you understand what you just signed.
A stack of papers, George?
That's right. And for future, just call this number if you need anything. And, yeah, I'm gonna need that pen back.
The mortgage process can be confusing. Looking for the right rate, the right term, and most importantly, the right place to get your mortgage. At Clinton Savings Bank, we are committed to getting the mortgage that's right for you. You may even receive up to a $750 credit off your closing costs. Plus, right now, you can lock in the rate from your pre-qualification for 90 days while you look for a home. So what are you waiting for? Definitely not this.
Oh, boy. Hi, Mrs. Lavache. How can I help? You're breaking up. Try again later.
Subject to credit approval. Offer may be withdrawn at any time. For complete details, exclusions, and credit costs and terms, call 888-744-4272. Apply at ClintonSavings.com. NMLS number 422081. Member FDIC. Member DIF. Equal housing lender.
We know why you're awake. Your child is about to get their driver's license. Levante's Auto School offers 1-week driving programs to help make sure your child stays safe and focused behind the wheel.
877 Drive Ed. Who's Ed?
That's the number for Levante's Auto School.
Learn to drive safely and efficiently. Visit one of our 5 locations throughout Massachusetts. Click Levante'sAutoSchool.com.
Levante's Auto School shows you how to learn the rules and keep your cool. 877 Drive Ed.
Who's Ed? That's the number for Levante's Auto School.
Hi, this is Brian Carpenter from One Worcester Homes. We're excited to offer the strongest buyer and seller representation throughout Worcester County and all the surrounding areas. Our agents are trained better and will look out for your best interests throughout the entire transaction. To reach out to One Worcester Homes, simply find us on Facebook, type in One Worcester Homes. We look forward to
Is that Joe Biden thing on the disc?
your selling transaction. And don't forget to join us.
It's asking me if I want to format it again. It's giving me that format, not formatted ordeal.
We've gone through that. It shouldn't. He used
The following is a paid program. The opinions are those of the host and guests, and not necessarily those of the station or its management.
This is the Joe Mangicotti Show. Our topics are large and small. When you really need to know, we are the show. You want to know. It's time to talk to you.
All right, folks, good morning. Good morning. Welcome to Saturday's edition of the Joe Mangicotti Show here on AM 830 WCRN and, of course, our sister station, AM 730 WACE. Lines are open and available. You can join the conversation, two-way talk at 508-871-7000. That's 508-871-7000. And, of course, our text line at 617-297-8388. That's 617-297-8388. If you don't have a device to text, but you do have a device, you can also just email me at textjoeontheradio@gmail.com. See how that works? Pretty clever, right? Textjoeontheradio@gmail.com. It appears on the same screen, so I can respond to you in real time, and you guys use that a lot, and I appreciate that. Thank you so much. I always want to make sure that you know that you can reach the show off air at our office number, which is 508-603-9778, 508-603-9778, or email the show at joemshow@gmail.com. All right, we are up and running, and of course, we are streaming live on Facebook. So if you go to the Joe Mangicotti Radio Show, and our shortcut for, just like all social media, Joe Mangi Show, and check it out. It's a little more than just me sitting in a studio by myself, because Jerry Doherty, host of Making Money Last, actually joined me physically in studio. So there's the two of us sitting here. Good morning, Jerry Doherty.
Good morning, Joe Mangicotti. I got up bright and early to drive over here.
You did.
To meet you here.
But you're a bright and early guy anyway.
I am a bright and early guy.
Up the gym, the whole thing, you know.
Yes. Well,
me not so much.
Maybe not this morning.
Maybe not this morning.
But after the show.
But you do a lot of your college things on Saturday morning, right? So those
I
are
do.
also sometimes.
I do.
Yeah. Now, do you have one coming up?
I have one coming up actually at Northern Essex Community College, and that will be the last Saturday in March and into the first Saturday in April.
Now,
And
it's
there's
going to be
also-
under 40 people, or you'll have to cancel, right?
Right. No, it'll be- I think we have roughly 16 or 18 registered.
You have had people cancel already, though, right?
I
Who
had
just
somebody
would
at
not
Worcester,
cancel,
at,
just
at Worcester
said, I'm not
State
going
the
to
other week.
go
I had
right
one,
now.
one person at a Worcester State event I did the other week. Yeah,
and of course, I think a lot of the people that come to see you are maybe considered in that bracket that's more susceptible.
Yeah.
So,
but Joe, I'd rather talk about the people who attend.
Yeah, people attend. Well, I'm just saying.
You trying
that,
to kill my business?
No, oh God, no. I'm sorry. I'm not going that way. It was my way getting into this whole coronavirus situation. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to do
No, I
any of
will
that
tell
at
you.
your
Though, it's kind of
expense.
funny. I have a very good assistant who helps me, and all the tables are. This is the truth. All the tables are actually wiped down beforehand. It's in a classroom setting.
Yeah,
but
it's
in addition to the janitorial staff, the custodians.
All right,
we
we'll move
also.
off that. I don't want to make it sound like you're going into a bad situation.
You could perform an
My bad.
operation in one of these classrooms.
Fantastic. So we actually got a lot to talk about, but before we got into it today, I wanted to talk about something, and that is I realized what that weight has been. That's kind of been hanging on me, and it's pretty much just I'm exhausted about the whole political, but not even the political part of this. I've been doing this for a long time, and there's always been something different these last few years. This is a great job to have and a great business to be in, and what I mean by that is talk radio, or anything, even writing right now, because politics is always exciting and there's always stuff to do. But these last 3-4 years, let's go well into the campaign, has been so different because it hasn't been about politics. And it's not about the issues and not about the ideological difference between conservative and Republican. It's been about hate. It's been about nastiness. It's been about every day. Every day, it's not about let's debate the policies. Let's debate the issues. Yes, we got to take care of this problem and we got to take care of that problem. And it's always been the debate on how to take care of it, just the difference, right? This side wants to throw money at it. The other side wants fiscal responsibility, what have you. What it's been, though, is every day these people start out with animosity. They start out with hate. They start out with personally despising the person in the Oval Office. They wake up, and I've said this before. I don't want to sound like a broken record, but look, Donald Trump rents space in these people's heads 24/7, and there's no let up on it. Every issue isn't about finding a solution. It's about the best way to make this guy in the Oval Office look bad. It's about how can we do that, what position can we take, what criticisms we can throw at him. There's no break. We see ourselves in the midst of this national emergency, national situation, and politics can't even take a rest here. And what I've realized is it's not that exciting job that you had because you got to debate, you got to go in and take issue with the policies in the way that you tackle the problem. Conservatives believe that we tend to have the right answer because it's common sense and follows law and order. And the left tends to think of it in terms of throw money at it, have more control and bigger government, and right wants smaller government. But that's not the issue. It has become personal. And when it's personal 24/7, it's exhausting It's exhausting because it's in the way of an actual discussion on the policy. The personal feelings in the personal agendas against a particular person and anyone, and this is the other thing, anyone to have to do with that person. Because if you have support, not only if you have support, but if you don't jump on their hate bandwagon, you're clumped in as a deplorable, as a smelly Walmart shopper, as a flyover country person, as a low IQ, uneducated person. So this has been the problem. I've realized it now. Is we're not talking about the issues. Anybody who is conservative or supports this president on his policies and his record have to defend against being called stupid, ignorant. Right? This is where they start. So how do you get to a respectable, mutually respectable conversation about the issues? Just saying that I realize why the last few years has felt different, because we haven't been able to do the real job, and that is breaking down what's going on, taking a position, arguing your position openly, freely, and welcoming the other side to do the same. And yes, there is absolute moronic activity on both sides, even violence on both sides. But I think you would all have to agree that the left, the progressive left, have taken it beyond the line when they beat up journalists, where they go nuts on campuses, college campuses, where free discussion, right? This is where you're supposed to have debate and welcome free thought and alternative thought and have the discussions. If you aren't part of that progressive left, they ban you. They literally riot and stop anybody on the right from even attending that ground, not even being able to enter that college and attend that assembly or make their speech. And they're beating up journalists who aren't on board. 34-year-old man slapping a 15-year-old in the face, driving a car into a Trump table, right? Picking on a 73-year-old veteran because he had a MAGA hat on. It's got to stop. Shooting up a softball practice because they were Republicans and Congressman Scalise nearly dying over it. I'm just saying we need to stop and actually clear the way for real discussion. 16 and a half minutes after the hour. Sorry, Jerry, but I just had to say that and get it off my chest because it dawned on me, I think yesterday, after the roundtable, that you don't start any political discourse on the issues. It is one side coming from the assumption that not only are you wrong, but you're racist, bigoted, xenophobe, and that's it. So any position, anything comes out of your mouth is coming from a racist point of view, period. And this is kind of, and they don't know you per se, right? These people don't know you. They just are going to take that position. I don't know where you feel on this or how you feel about this, but take some time on the mic. Give me a break.
No, Joe, I think you said that very well. It's very interesting because, whether it's college campuses or whether it's just the vitriolic, discourse that's going on, this is one of the few examples in the United States that we don't celebrate diversity. We don't celebrate diversity when it comes to diversity of opinion. somebody who disagrees with you, it seems today in this, electric political environment that we live in, it seems that they are your enemy. If you disagree with somebody, then you are that person's enemy. It's very sad. We should be celebrating diversity of opinion. That's what's made this country great. And it's the only thing that has advanced us, for centuries since the beginning of time, is different ways of doing things. And I think, to one of your points, when you spoke about, why it's so politically charged right now, I think we are entering a different time in the United States. I think what happened in the United States is that for 50 years, for the better part of 50 years anyway, we went on this idea of globalism.
Yeah.
How, we can export manufacturing, we can become a global, we're citizens of the planet Earth. We're not citizens of the United States of America. And so we tried that that experiment for the better part of 50 years. And I think now what people are starting to realize is that the experiment has failed on many different levels, maybe not 100%, but certainly well into the 90s. And people are saying, gee, should we really be doing these global things? Look at where this has gotten us today. And I just think that this all converges at the time when you have Donald Trump elected president, that all of these things are becoming very apparent. He's starting to expose these things and the flaws. And then you look at what's gone on around the world right now. I do think that this coronavirus is one of the final nails in the coffin of globalism. I think that people are really going to rethink whether or not they should be locating manufacturing around the world, or they have different regulations, different controls, different supply chains, and how it makes you very vulnerable.
Absolutely, because you cannot force everybody on the planet to live the same way. And the globalism has failed on many, many levels. And yes, 100%, because what has come to the surface, and this is actually something that Donald Trump, and I didn't realize this till the last 24 hours when it came out in one of the talking shows I'm watching, is shortly after he came into office, he actually ordered an audit of just across the board. In that, where certain things came out about where things are coming from in supply lines and things of that nature, because that all went into him renegotiating. I know that President Obama criticized him for about saying that he's going to negotiate better deals, but it all helped him when it came to the USMCA phase 1 with China. Is he realized that so much is dependent outside. Now this has really pointed out that, look, at China just threatened to cut off, right, any antibiotics and medicine because they control the majority of it. And we've already had things in place about a certain amount of steel has to be made within the United States and certain things. And I think this really has now emphasized that we don't have to be isolationists, but we do need to be able to stand on our own and not be dependent. And one of the first steps that he did was making us energy independent. So we weren't at the mercy of the Middle East or, God forbid, the Soviet Union or Russia at that point. Because, and the other part of that is you got to remember that Putin's power, and by the way, he just pulled this little thing to keep him in office for 3 more terms, like he's creating president for life type of thing, is that if it isn't for high fuel costs getting out there, their wealth goes down and their power goes down. It's connected to the demand for oil around the world is what powers the economic force behind Russia. And that is really one of the biggest reasons that he annexed Crimea, was he needed access to the port, and he had to go through Crimea. 508-871-7000. Bruce, thank you for holding. I appreciate the call. Good morning. Jerry Doherty's in studio with me. You're on the Joe Mangiacotti Show.
Jerry, thank you for being on numerous shows this week and explaining the result of the markets. It's been really helpful to the listening audience. And I just want to thank you again for doing that.
Well, Bruce, I appreciate that comment, Bruce. Thank you.
I don't see why the Democrats are doing what they're doing. They're screwing up basic stuff. They are promising things in their platforms. And then when citizens ask, are you sure that's what you want to do? Then they deny it. Not once, but twice. There's 2 videos of this man saying the same thing.
Are you referring to Joe Biden's run-in with the gentleman, the auto worker, when he couldn't?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, okay.
Not only did he take the endorsement of Beto, but he said during that endorsement that he was going to make him the gun czar to take all the guns back.
Right.
And then about a week later, he's denying it.
Yeah, I think, Bruce, this is just my thought. Obviously, I'm not a psychologist or a doctor, but I do think that with Joe Biden, these outbursts, not only with that auto worker, I think it's a little bit deeper than that. I really do think that there are cognitive issues with Joe Biden. I truly do believe that. I'm not quite sure that he actually even knows what he's doing at times.
And this is not being mean,
because I've seen it.
Yeah, I agree.
And I don't think Jerry or I or Bruce or you or anybody were trying to be mean or even funny. When I say there's an issue there, I'm being very serious, and it's at the point. And back, in the beginning when Joe started to pick up, I defended him a couple times because I'm like, look, everybody, we all forget a word once in a while, but this is consistent, and it's beyond just forgetting a word at one time. And Jerry, I agree with you. There's times it really appears there's a moment or two he totally forgot where he is and what he's supposed to be doing. And a lot of times when you have these issues, you will pick up a point in time, and I don't know if you know what I'm talking about, but as you get older and you start to have the early onset of this, your mind goes back to a familiar time. And I think that's part of what happened when he said, I'm Joe Biden and I'm running for the Senate. If you don't like me, go the other better.
My final hour,
go ahead, Bruce.
My final hour is fighting the battle of Alzheimer's.
Mm-hmm.
When he first started out, we started talking about politics. We had to stop because it was really getting irritated. And as time comes on, he's now fighting the battle completely.
Right.
So
right.
Like you said, we don't want to be cruel, but it looks like this is happening. Second thing.
Yep.
Okay? We have a little crisis going on, and the Democratic House decides to throw all their freebie articles into a bill that's only supposed to do one thing. Okay? And when I bring this up to some of my Democratic family, I'm attacking the Democrats. I'm a mean person. Okay?
I'm assuming
you're trying to fight.
Yeah. Bruce, You're talking about Nancy Pelosi stacking the coronavirus emergency bill with all kinds of things, including trying to get around the Hyde Amendment with funding for abortions and other things that she kind of tucked in there. And then when of course, you see the media say, oh, the Republicans voted against this corona bill to save us. Well, what they don't tell you is, yeah, of course they did, because it wasn't a corona fighting bill. It was a lot of pork and fat slid in by Pelosi on serious things that the Republican caucus has no support of, like abortions and funding Planned Parenthood.
I'm sorry, Joe. I forget that we have to explain what we're talking about. Your listening audience is one of the most intelligent listening audiences, and they know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But as a host, you have to explain what I'm trying to get through. So thank you very much.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you, Bruce.
Love the show. Thank you, Jerry.
Thank you, Bruce. Good speaking
with
Bruce.
you. And thank you for that. that's just sometimes we've got to make sure because that is very true actually. Going into the 14th year that we've been doing these Saturday mornings, Mike Wade started it off. I've been here for the ride and then solo since December of 2017. I got to tell you, we have an incredibly intelligent, well-informed audience.
Yeah, no, Joe, you absolutely do. I want to pick up though on something that Bruce said. And, when he was talking about that bill being packed with all this pork, and, you really explained it very well, Joe. It shows you how awful, really, truly, how terrible many of these people in Washington, D.C. are. These lawmakers that we have in Washington, D.C., they're so entrenched that at a moment like this, when we are in a state of national emergency, that they would have the gall to take a bill that's supposed to get us out of this national emergency and start packing pork in it. Could you imagine if we did this? Bernie Sanders is equating some of this to, World War II, right. That this is which is extreme hyperbole. But when you look at this, if it really is of that magnitude, then why are you bogging this thing down with a whole bunch of your personal issues for your constituents? Why not move on and do what's right for the country? But again, in my mind, it just illustrates how awful these people are. And these are really terrible people.
Do they think they're clever? I mean, do they think this is good politically? Political move. It's good politicking. I don't know what you're thinking, but we're going to have to take a break for Out with Joe. Now, the city of Worcester canceled tomorrow's St. Patrick's Day parade. Boston canceled the Boston parade, and of course the breakfast. I can see the breakfast because I don't know if you've ever attended one, but there's a zillion people crammed in to this space, and you're breathing and spittling all over each other. The parade, I'm not so sure. I mean, you are out in the open and so forth. A lot of the after parties are going to still go on around the city. But anyway, with Joe, we talk a little bit about some interesting St. Patrick Day factoids that's brought to us by Nothing Bun Cake. So we'll be back on the other side. Stick with us here on the Joe Mangiacotti Show.
It's time to go out with Joe.
Welcome to this edition of Out with Joe, brought to you by Nothing But Cakes in White City Plaza, Shrewsbury. I'm Joe Mangiacotti from the Cantiani Insurance Studios. Well, as St. Patrick's Day draws closer, we'll soon be searching for that green shamrock shirt, scanning Pinterest for easy corned beef recipes, and picking up a little whiskey or Guinness to get ready for the celebration. Sure, we love to celebrate St. Patrick's Day, but where did these traditions come from? And how are we celebrating them today? Well, we've picked up some of the most interesting St. Patrick's Day facts and tidbits for you to share in your party conversations. Well, St. Patrick's Day is an Irish national holiday with banks, stores, and businesses closing for the day. The first St. Patrick's Day celebration in the United States was held in Boston in 1737, and shamrocks are the national flower or emblem of Ireland. And the color of St. Patrick's Day was originally blue. Wearing green has become a staple of St. Patrick's Day, but the holiday was originally associated with the color blue. It's thought that the shift to green happened because of Ireland's nickname, the Emerald Isle. The green in the Irish flag and the shamrock, or clover. Green ribbons and shamrocks were worn as early as the 17th century. Beer is one of the most widely consumed beverages on St. Patrick's Day. No kidding, right? Legend says that each leaf of the clover has a meaning: hope, faith, love, and luck. 1962 marked the first time Chicago dyed the river green for St. Patrick's Day. And Chicago does dye the river green for a few hours to celebrate St. Patrick's. Guinness is one of the most popular drinks on St. Patrick's Day, and there are some great recipes on outwithjoe.com. Shamrock shakes are also very popular, very tasty too. There are 34.7 million U.S. residents with Irish ancestry. This number is more than 7 times the population of Ireland itself, and there are 5 times the population of Ireland who claim Irish descension in the Boston area. And the real St. Patrick wasn't Irish. He was born in Britain around 390 AD to an aristocratic Christian family. Your odds of finding a 4-leaf clover are about 1 in 10,000. And the world's shortest St. Patrick's Day parade is held in an Irish village. It only lasts about 100 yards. See, it's between the two village pubs. St. Patrick never got canonized by a pope, by the way, making his saintly status somewhat questionable. Well, there you go. Some St. Patrick's Day conversation starters. This post with sources and those recipes I mentioned earlier are at outwithjoe.com. It's time now to find out what is hot and happening on the local music scene. And to do that, we turn to Out With Joe music editor, Tina Marie Billing. Hey, Tina, good morning.
Good morning, Joe. Hi, everyone. Here are my picks for live local music this weekend. Tonight, the Racky Thomas Band will play for you live at Jasper Hill in Millis. The Tony Soul Project will be at the Millbury Old Time Inn in Millbury, and the Nudie Suits are at B-Man's 140 in Sterling. Giuliano D'Orazio entertains at the Duck in Fiskdale, and the Back Pages are at TJ's Food and Spirits in Ashland. Grounds for Divorce hit the Morse Tavern in Natick, and Amanda Cody is at Happy Jack's in Leominster. For Sunday, the feature at Christoval Brown's Sunday Live Blues is Johnny Juxo at the Union Street Restaurant in Newton. Parker Wheeler and Friends at the Grog in Newburyport has Italian import Roberto Morbioli. The Carlos Odria Trio is at Exhibit A Brewing Company in Framingham. And Dance to Swing features the Reminiscence at the Leominster Elks Lodge, 1237 in Leominster. Be sure to check with the venues this weekend before attending. That's my Music Minute for the week, Joe. Now back to you.
Thank you, Tina. Tina always has the 411 and all the fun. Don't forget to support your local musicians. We do. For more on dining and entertainment, click outwithjoe.com and follow us on social media at OutWithJoe. Out With Joe has been brought to you by Nothing Bundt Cakes, White City Plaza in Shrewsbury, and on Facebook at Nothing Bundt Cakes Shrewsbury. Have you heard of the hottest new bakery around? I know you heard about it right here. My friend Al has opened Nothing Bundt Cake in the White City Plaza in Shrewsbury. Nothing Bundt Cake is a bakery chain and is locally owned and operated by my friend Al. They have bundt cakes ranging from bite-sized to tiered, plus platters, candles, and cards. Stop by and check them out. Everything is baked from scratch and on site. Nothing beats a sweet surprise. And until you try one of Al's bundt cakes, you haven't tried a real bundt cake. Stop by and ask for Al. Tell him Joe told you to stop by. 98 Boston Turnpike, White City Plaza near Planet Fitness, Shrewsbury. And on Facebook as well, Nothing Bundt Cake Shrewsbury.
This is Wes Oliver with Prestige Home Mortgage from Handling Change. I can help you with all of your residential mortgage needs, from a purchase to a refinance or even an estate buyout situation in the event of a family death. You can call or text me at 508-332-4171 or on the web at wesoliverteam.com.
This is the Joe Mangiacotti Show. We are the show. You want to know. It's time to talk to Joe.
All right, folks, welcome back here to the show at AM 830, WCRN, AM 730, WACE. Lines open and available. Join the conversation, 508-871-7000. That's 508-871-7000. And, of course, text us on our text line, which is 617-297-8388, or email textjoeintheradio at gmail.com. There was some text that did come in. And I guess I didn't catch this, but one of our well, actually they emailed, they didn't use the text. I guess Andrew Yang, and by the way, Jerry Doherty from Making Money Last in studio with me, and you're heard, of course, Monday through Friday, 11 to noon. And my favorite day is Thursdays because it's Political Thursday. And I'm so glad he started doing that. That's fun. And that must be like an escape for you, right? A chance for you to get that political frustration out for you, because you do your show and you do it very well on the Making Money Last and retirement planning, but you have that opportunity on Thursdays to get it out, I would think.
I do.
Yeah.
I do. But it's not, my motivations are not all selfish, though, Joe. It's not just that it helps me vent my frustrations. It's also
just a happy coincidence. That's all.
Well, it's a happy coincidence, but it's also very important politics to the economy. You know, policy coming out of Washington, D.C. obviously shapes a lot of our economy.
Oh, absolutely. So one of our listeners sent in, and I didn't catch this. I guess Andrew Yang said that he supported Joe Biden, the Democrat prohibitive candidate. And they said that they surely thought that maybe the meaning of the word changed, so they looked it up, which is a little tongue-in-cheek. That's funny. But twice he said prohibitive. And I think that he might have been looking for presumptive candidate, right? Opposed to prohibitive. But these are the type of funny things or great things that you guys send in on the text line. I appreciate that. 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. So the Trump administration is working on executive orders to decrease American dependence on China in this fight against the pandemic, and that we should never be dependent on basically probably one of our greatest enemies to keep our country healthy. And that's great that's great leadership for Donald Trump. And another thing, going back to what, Bruce was alluding to, the other thing that Pelosi was trying to do is she tried to sneak in a FISA reauthorization into the original China virus funding bill, right? She delayed passage of the bill to run ads against Republicans on Super Tuesday even, and then tried to sneak the abortion funds into that virus funding bill as well. And they try to say Trump is the one politicizing this.
Did she also try to stick in funding to remodel her kitchen? Or
probably.
Yeah,
she certainly wants to make sure that the Air Force jet, which is like a G5 that the speaker gets, is well stocked with champagne. Remember that from a few years ago when the Freedom of Information Act, somebody filed and they got out from the General Accounting Office that the flights not all Air Force jets, by the way, folks, are F-16s or big C-130s. We have a flight of private jets. These are the $20 million jets that the CEO of GM flies in, and flights back and forth to San Francisco and of course there's a manifest, so we know who's on it, and it's all of her California friends and family members, and the jet stocked with champagne and goodies on these flights on the taxpayer.
Well, my wife knows a lot about champagne and wine in general, and I can tell you, she still tells me that Moet is still the best.
Moet, absolutely. There's always a bottle in the fridge at home. 508-871-7000. Joanne, good morning. Thanks for calling. You're on with myself and Jerry Doherty as well.
Yes. Good morning, Jerry. Good morning, Joe. I thought while you were touching on Biden and his obvious mental incompetence for whatever it is, but of course it's obviously onset Alzheimer's. But he is never going to be the candidate at the convention. I just wanted to run this by you and Jerry and see if you agree with this. That and I'm going to take a direct quote out of this essay. There is no way that the Democrat establishment will let either Bernie, well, now Bernie's gone by the boards, or will let Biden lead the Democrat ticket in November. And the selection of an outsider candidate in a brokered convention has been their strategy all along. And then he gives some possible candidates. Eric Holder, Deval Patrick, Michelle Obama, representing the Obama wing of the party, or representing the Clinton wing would be someone like a Terry McAuliffe or a Hillary herself. So this is what they've been up to all along. Don't you agree, Joe and Jerry, that it will somebody will just step in at the convention, even though it's been orchestrated to happen all along?
Well, to tell you the truth, Joanne, I've actually talked about this a little bit. The only thing that makes me wonder whether the brokered convention will come into play is we hear that every 4 years, and we really haven't had a brokered convention, I think, since the 50s. However, you are absolutely right, and I don't know where you're reading this essay from, but honestly, it would be, you could do a pay-per-view to watch Joe Biden and Donald Trump on one-on-one on a debate stage.
Oh,
that would be absolutely crazy. But when you look at Joe Biden and Nancy Pelosi, right, the flag bearers of the Democratic Party, neither one of them seems to be able to get a complete, coherent sentence out together. We know Joe's issues, but, you know, Nancy also has, between fighting the dentures that seem to float in her mouth, and she loses the words as well, right? I mean, she's constantly searching for those words. They're not smooth. They're not articulate. And I can say this, Joanne, and I was talking to you about this, Jerry, the other day, is this vice presidential pick is so important. And I make reference to Greg Gutfield's analogy, which is fantastic. It's like buying a tear-down house. Biden is the house, and the vice president is the lot. So whoever you're going to put that ticket in, that vice president select, if he was to win in general election, is so important because the chances, the probability of Joe Biden finishing a complete term are very slim. That shortly after becoming president, he will either step down because of health issues or have to be removed because of health issues or what have you. So the vice president then moves up to president. So it's so important because that would be Joe Biden's the house, he's the tear down, and then you're left with the lot, and that would be the vice presidential pick. So that would be a huge part of this part, okay, this election. So that's very important. As far as the brokered convention, this could very well be the situation. And they could have been holding this, Joanne, I think, in the back pocket all along, saying there's no way that we can let Bernie Sanders be our candidate. For one thing, he's not even a Democrat. The second thing is, and I'm not, for clarification right now, I'm not calling Bernie Sanders a communist at this moment, but I'm saying the election would then be the capitalist in one of the best economies to ever exist in this country and on the planet versus communism. Of course, he calls it social democratic socialism. So I do think that there's a good chance that the nominee becomes someone who is not Bernie or Joe.
Yeah, Joanne, I
do think.
Go ahead, Joanne.
Go ahead, Jared.
No, you go ahead,
no,
Joe.
go ahead.
Go ahead,
no,
Joe.
you go.
No, what I was going to say, Joanne, is that generally I agree with you. I think that Joe Biden, though, and let me kind of get to the end because I do ultimately agree with you. I think that Joe Biden is going to be the nominee for the Democrats. I think that they're pretty far down the road right now to change horses. And I think what it is that Joe Biden is going to ultimately end up being a figurehead. I think there's going to be a Democrat, essentially coalition presidency with Joe Biden as the figurehead. Now, the issue, of course, is can Joe Biden get from today to that point in November where he could be elected? Because at times he's going to have to be out on his own. I think this debate on Sunday night is going to be pretty telling what Bernie Sanders does. But even beyond this primary season, if Joe Biden were to debate Donald Trump, I think that
it would be a.
I think it'd be a disaster.
Oh.
It would be. So can Joe Biden maintain the confidence of the American people? And I don't know about Alzheimer's, by the way. When you had mentioned that, I think it certainly is a form of dementia that he has. I think that's to say the least. That the guy has. So again, whether he can get from today to that point, I think is a different story. If he gets to that point where he actually gets elected, then I do think he's just going to be a figurehead president, and that there'll be a coalition that's actually running it.
And Joanne,
very liberal people.
Yeah, exactly. And Joanne, I don't know if you remember this or saw. See, Biden had those aneurysms, and they did. I mean, he is on video explaining it about literally, how they cut off the top of the head and they had to go in and do that. And that, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, well, whatever it's from, it's obvious that he's, putting it not politely, he's lost it. He's not capable of coherent. First off, he flies off the handle. Can you just see him with Trump?
Yeah.
In the first 5 minutes, he's going to start calling him, "Hey man, let's do push-ups." Or
you dog face pony. Let's step outside.
Joanne, I could not believe what he said to that woman. The quote that Joe was just reading.
Yeah.
That was absolutely unbelievable. Anybody else that would have finished their campaign right then and there.
And everybody ran to Google right? We were all, including me, trying to find out, well, what movie is that from?
Right,
like,
but
you know,
Well, they just had it. They just had it on the other night. It's a John Wayne movie called The Pony Soldiers. I didn't watch it again, but evidently it refers to the Indians that helped the
right.
after the World War.
Got it.
But but no, I just don't see him. He might be nominated, but then they would say, well, pull him. Say his family would say he's got, blah blah blah, and then would the already decided on running mate, would he or she would then become the the Democrat nominee for president? I mean, is that how it would happen if they did that?
what it would be is Joe Biden, if he could make it to the general election, right, and be successful, then the vice president, or only if, well, actually, this is an interesting question. If he's the nominee and he decides who the running mate is, now if anything should happen to him or he becomes evident that he couldn't hold office, they would have to. They'd have to put another person in, another nominee. They'd have to an emergency convention or emergency caucus and select another candidate. It wouldn't be automatic that the vice president becomes the candidate, but they could very well make the vice president pick the candidate.
Well,
You see what I'm saying?
The whole thing is like a tape recorder. It really is. It's like, play, rewind, play, rewind. We're just going back to the same old, Hillary Clinton thing that we went through in 2016.
Yeah.
The Democrats and just in general, I think a lot of elections on both sides, by the way, they rehash these politicians that have track records of doing nothing but losing. They have been part of the problem in messing things up. Joe Biden has been in Washington, D.C.
All right. Nancy Pelosi has been in government 33 years. Bernie Sanders has been in government for 29 years. Now, Biden has 38 years, 8 years as vice president. And Donald Trump has been in government for 3 years, right? But they blame him for everything, right? And you got to say to the Biden, where were you for the 8 years if you have all these answers? Why didn't you tell Barack? Why didn't you tell him what to do? Right. You were VP and you were in the Senate. You could, and that's one of the things, Joanne and Jerry, right? The history has shown us that the success rate of long incumbent senators getting elected to the presidency almost non-existent, because if you've been there so long, right, 30 years plus, why are we in a mess? And only the short-term president, like Barack Obama, term in JFK, very short time in the Senate, and they launched to the presidency.
Yeah. Right.
They did. And why would you expect people who have been there that long, who clearly have been part of the problem, are going to be the same people who are going to be part of the solution, to the problems that we have right now? We're coming into a different world right now. Donald Trump has really exposed a lot of the flaws in what's gone on over the past 50 years. And I have to tell you, I have changed my thinking over the past couple of years about these problems, because when you really do drill down on them from a business perspective, a lot of these things have not made any sense, and we do need to move in a different direction.
Exactly. That's why they hate him, because he has exposed their corrupt globalism that Barack Obama had reached the pinnacle of success under Obama. I mean, he was selling us out to everybody.
Yeah. Well, Barack Obama also said that, look, those jobs, manufacturing jobs went away. You can't renegotiate these things. There's no magic wand. And Trump has actually proven that that's just not the case. Thank you, Joanne, very much for the call. Always appreciate it, and appreciate that you listen to the show so religiously. 508-871-7000. Good morning, Lieutenant. Thanks for holding on. I know it's been a little bit.
Good morning, Colonel Joe, Captain Jerry, Lieutenant Ken reporting.
Excellent.
And if I can, for your listeners who may have heard this, my titles for many calls, and didn't hear the original call to explain why I came up with these titles, it's to reset the fact that we are involved in a information civil war. So I'm applying titles to those who are fighting the war. We the free among us.
Excellent. Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for doing that, because I think some people are like, well, what is he talking about? why is he colonel? Why is he captain? But I also appreciate the gesture and that you've taken time to explain that, and I'm fine with that.
No, it's really well stated, though. Just that, simple sentence that you said, it's an information civil war that's going on in the United States right now. And what is really changing that civil war a lot are formats like Twitter, where you can have the Oval Office the president going directly to the American people. And that's the best place to go when you want to make an argument, not through these politicians and also not through the press corps that used to, they'd have these gaggles in the White House where they'd be sitting around, and it would be these people, just regular individual people, who would be filtering information to the American people. It's far better that the president speak directly to the American people. I think that's the way it should be. And that's what Twitter and other formats have allowed to happen. I think your point is very well taken. It is an information civil war. That's very well stated.
And Twitter itself has been dominated by the other side. So it's the equivalent of being a homeowner and the termites just keep eating at your foundation. And Trump came along and said, no, I'm stopping you. And so he's whacking at the termites. Because if you don't, everything's going to fall.
And and then there was the court ruling that Donald Trump could not block people on Twitter. Now, they can't do it from, obviously, the POTUS account. But, that takes on his personal account. They said he's a public figure, so he can't, because he blocked people who were trolling him and harassing him and so forth. And, I think that is, look, everybody has the right to say what they have to say, but you shouldn't have to be forced to listen to it. You know what I'm saying? I don't have to listen to you. So I think that's kind of sad that happened. But you're 100% right, the both of you, that Twitter, he has changed. Well, first of all, he changed politics as far as he changed how presidents get elected. And he's changed this office to a great degree. We had Barack Obama was actually the first POTUS to have a laptop on his desk, right? So he's the first president that actually had a computer. Donald Trump has been...
Bill Clinton actually was the first to have a lap dance.
Nice. Where is the drum snag there? Yeah. So he's changed, because 100%, if it wasn't for social media, specifically Twitter, Donald Trump would not have been able to go directly to the people. Ronald Reagan used that tool very well, but of course that was addressing people directly, right? He would make a presidential address and tell people. He'd go in and say, want this done, we need this done. You need to get a hold of your representatives and senators and tell them you want it. That's how Reagan did it. Now, I'm sure that Reagan would have found Twitter and social media very useful, too, if it existed in the 80s. So, look, he's changed how it happens, and I know people complain about it, but you know what? It's also at a point like, how long can you complain about his style? Stop. Just it goes back to how I opened the show. Just, this is who he is. Accept it, understand it, get over it, and get to the issues. Get to what's really important. Not that he's tweeting at 4 a.m, all right, or any of that silliness. Just get over that. The point is, he's been able to communicate with us, the American citizen, directly, and it has changed everything, because he also speaks. And I know he's a billionaire and all of that, and all these other candidates, including the other billionaires, think that they can pull a page from Donald Trump, but they can't. You can't be Donald Trump. He does somehow, he connects with the average person. And let's not forget, when you take it all away, he's still a New York City construction guy, and he's been dealing with blue-collar workers and unions, and these guys, and he knows how they think, and he knows how they live, and he knows what they want.
It is. He has that that certain something With JFK, they called it the charisma. Donald Trump certainly has that je ne sais quoi. He definitely has that special something that isn't replicatable. Either you have it or you do not have it. But I want to make a point on this thing, too, about some of these politicians. The issue with many politicians, Barack Obama, AOC, are two good examples that come to mind, though, is that prior to being elected, they have no demonstrable accomplishments in life. They really don't. They don't have any
100%.
demonstrable accomplishments in life. So they have not been shaped yet in life. And then one day they get elected to an office, both of them. They get elected to office, and it's essentially they're anointed now. They haven't earned it. They're anointed. They went through an election, sometimes like with AOC, under strange circumstances that maybe wouldn't be replicatable in the future. And now they're anointed, and now they are being shaped by these other awful politicians who tend to influence them and take them in different directions. Donald Trump entered office. He was already shaped. He was already who he was when he entered office, and he went in there with a different view of things, not to be shaped by the political class in Washington.
And very much so when these people get elected, too, they're all of a sudden, all of that great stuff on the campaign trail, right, about I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. They show up in D.C., and Ken, you know this, right? They said, oh, no, by the way, you got to make fundraising phone calls 3 hours this morning and 2 hours in the afternoon. You got to be here, you got to be there, and you pretty much have got to vote the way the speaker or the this is how it all works. Donald Trump comes in, he never ran for an office, never held an elected office. Therefore, he's not beholden to any pact or special interest group. He has none of that on him. He funded initially, on his own, and he had enough money come in. He wasn't out there, trying to talk to billionaires and millionaires to raise money. He just did it. He spent a fraction of what Hillary Clinton spent, and the media did the rest of the work for him, right?
For many of these people, Joe, it's the best job that they have ever had, and it's the best job that they will ever have. The highest paying job with the most benefits.
1 minute, guys.
So they don't have, again, a track record of...
Hey, Ken, we're up against the clock. Need to hold you there. We got to move on. Thanks for the call. You're always welcome to call back. Jerry Doherty in studio with me here, 508-871-7000. We'll be back for hour 2 in just a few moments, so stick with us. Oh, no, we got... we got a little time. Okay, 508-871. Oh, my clock's off.
Yeah, it is.
It's guys, ever since the...
30 seconds.
All right, got it. Ken, my apologies. I'm looking at my digital clock over my head, and I'm thinking I'm on time. Studio clock. Sorry about that. 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. And, of course, our text line is up and available at 617-297-8388. And, of course, you can also email us at textjoeontheradio@gmail.com. Second hour, Jerry, we'll continue to solve all the world's ills.
We will.
10 seconds now. 10 seconds.
There's some people in Washington.
I got my countdown. 10, 5, 4, 3, 2.
WACE Chicopee and WCRN Worcester.
Special report, coronavirus pandemic. I'm Christopher Cruz. In an early morning vote, the U.S. House has approved a bill that would provide economic support for Americans and strengthen food programs as the coronavirus spreads. Washington correspondent Sarah Westwood this morning.
There will be 2 weeks of paid sick leave included in the bill for people who might not be able to go into work during the height of the coronavirus outbreak, and 3 months of paid medical and family leave for those workers. Now, a key part of this bill is that it ensures free testing for COVID-19, regardless of whether you have insurance, and it expands unemployment and food programs.
The bill now goes to the Senate, where approval is expected. President Trump's declaration of a national emergency yesterday afternoon will free up $50 billion, as well as the full power of the federal government to stop the virus. During a press conference, he denied any responsibility for delays in making testing available. I'm Christopher Cruz. Airlines have been cutting back on flights as countries restrict travel and consumers decide not to fly for fear of contracting the virus. Delta Airlines is cutting 40% of its flights, says Washington correspondent Kylie Atwood.
Delta's CEO issued an internal memo laying out some drastic cuts that they are going to be taking. These are even deeper cuts than they took after 9/11. And he said that is due to a fall off in demand that is something like they have never seen, noting that there are more cancellations of flights over the next month than there are reservations for new flights.
The U.S. now has 49 coronavirus deaths, and infections have been reported in every state except West Virginia. Democrats say President Trump's muddled response to the outbreak leaves him and down-ballot Republicans vulnerable. They're challenging his competency and blaming him for stock market losses. I'm Christopher Cruz.
Paid non-attorney spokesperson. Attention! If you've had hernia surgery and have experienced complications such as chronic pain, infection, wound reopening, mesh migration, bowel obstruction, need revision surgery, or other complications, you may be entitled to significant cash compensation. Hernia repair surgery is common and requires a mesh product to be implanted inside your body. In May of 2016, the manufacturer of a popular hernia mesh product issued a mandatory global recall due to product defects. If you've had hernia surgery and have experienced complications, you may be entitled to significant cash compensation. Call the Hernia Mesh Helpline now at 800-245-5187. Our experienced attorneys will fight to get you the compensation you deserve. You pay nothing unless we get a recovery in your favor. Time is limited to file a claim, so call the Hernia Mesh Helpline now, 800-245-5187. Operators are standing by 24/7. Call 800-245-5187. That's 800-245-5187.
I'm Reverend Peter Preble, host of Faith in America on WCRN 830 AM. On Faith in America, we hold conversations at the crossroads of faith and society. Faith in America, Sunday mornings at 6 a.m., right here on WCRN.
Okay, Mr. and Mrs. Lavache, you're all set with your mortgage. And I assume you understand what you just signed.
A stack of papers, George?
That's right. And for future, just call this number if you need anything. And, yeah, I'm gonna need that pen back.
The mortgage process can be confusing. Looking for the right rate, the right term, and most importantly, the right place to get your mortgage. At Clinton Savings Bank, we are committed to getting the mortgage that's right for you. You may even receive up to a $750 credit off your closing costs. Plus, right now, you can lock in the rate from your pre-qualification for 90 days while you look for a home. So what are you waiting for? Definitely not this.
Oh, boy. Hi, Mrs. Lavache. How can I help? You're breaking up. Try again later.
Subject to credit approval. Offer may be withdrawn at any time. For complete details, exclusions, and credit costs and terms, call 888-744-4272. Apply at ClintonSavings.com. NMLS number 422081. Member FDIC. Member DIF. Equal housing lender.
I want to tell you what Cantiani Insurance has been able to do for me and Teddy. We stopped in to see Paul Sr. and the great staff at 318 Plantation Street. They've been handling my car and business insurance for years. Teddy was making his way around the office, and they let me know. They now offer pet insurance. For a fraction of what one visit to the vet was for Teddy, they could cover him for a whole year. I know you treat your furry family members like any other family member, and as well as I do Teddy. The professional staff at Cantiani has been providing courteous service for over 40 years, with integrity and personalized service, making sure that your insurance actually protects you and your family. With 2 locations, the 318 Plantation Street in Worcester and East Douglas Insurance Agency, located at 306 Main Street in Douglas. For home, auto, business insurance, and now pet insurance, click CantianiAgency.com or call 508-791-2088. 508-791-2088.
So are you tired of being tired? Well, then it's time to get the tea. Hey, it's Lisa here to tell you about this all-natural, all-organic tea I've been drinking that has had great results for over 20 years. It's called Life Change Tea, and it's specially formulated to help detoxify and cleanse your kidneys, liver, colon, and blood all at once. The colon is one of the most ignored organs in the human body. The faster that waste is eliminated from the body, the less time that waste sits in our intestines, spreading toxins toxins to our bloodstream. This tea helps cleanse chemicals caused by outside intruders from our entire digestive system. And get this, weight loss can be a side effect. And with continued use of the tea, you can experience clearer, healthier, younger looking skin, increased energy, and a happier outlook on life. So if you're tired of being tired, get the Life Change Tea at getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. And like me, you'll be glad you did.
This is the Joe Mangiacotti Show. Our topics are large and small. When you really need to know, we are the show you want to know. It's time to talk to you.
All right, folks, welcome back to Hour 2 of today's show here on AM 830 WCRN and AM 730 WACE. And don't forget that we are live streaming on the TuneIn app, which means you can take us anywhere. If you don't have the app, seconds to download. Punch in WCRN, bang, take us anywhere. 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. And, of course, our text line is up and running at 617-297-8388. You can also email at textjoeontheradio@gmail.com. It appears on the same screen. In studio with me is Jerry Doherty, host of Making Money Last, heard here on these stations Monday through Friday from 11 to noon. And, of course, your business is Boston Independence Group. You're right down the street.
We are right down the street. Yeah, we're about a mile down the road from the studio. Very convenient. And we specialize in retirement planning. That's what we do at our firm, Boston.
And you do that very well. And that's
Well,
what
thank you,
your clients know. And they come in the people who are either close to retirement or have retired recently are the people who need to speak to you, correct?
Correct.
All right.
Yes.
And you can help them out. And given the stock market lately, you must be fielding a lot of calls.
We are.
Yeah.
We're definitely fielding a lot of calls. A lot of volatility. And volatility, of course, is of concern depending on where you're positioned in life. If you're young with decades of time ahead of you, this volatility probably doesn't matter too much because markets will come back. But, you know, the person who is going to retire in March or April of this year, this volatility completely changes their picture. So the closer you are to retirement, the more concerning volatility becomes.
What was interesting, Jerry, is when the president was speaking yesterday, the stock market, and it was interesting because actually I happened to be on the phone with Ted A. from here, and I'm watching and he has it on. I can hear it on in the studio here. I'm in my home studio. I have it on. And, of course, the bottom of the screen, I'm watching the Dow Jones just click up almost to 2,000 points, right? While I was on the phone with Ted A., it went from up 1,700 to 1,940 points in the one phone call while the president's speaking. What does that tell us?
Well, I think it tells us that, you know, he's instilling confidence back in the American public. You know, what America wants in a leader, what any country wants in a leader, is somebody who can instill confidence and who has a plan. And, you know, I think that the press conference yesterday was particularly well laid out. I think it was a great partnership between the public sector and the private sector, having all those CEOs up there. And I think it absolutely did instill a lot of confidence that we are attacking this coronavirus, this COVID-19 virus, aggressively.
And I don't think that many people and many past presidents, all of them, could have done it exactly the same way that Donald Trump did by pulling the private sector in and having a conversation as one former billionaire CEO to other billionaire CEOs. And he believes in the private sector to make things run right? Not the government. And that's I think, a big difference between career politicians who think the answer to everything is government. We just need more money, and we need more committees, and we need more agencies, right? And we need more enforcement to take the money away from everybody. This is that mentality opposed to have a strong, robust economy revenues will go up because earnings go up. And we've seen this happen over this presidency. The average income to every household has increased. Most highest rate of increase happens to be in those blue-collar workers, right? The middle-class workers have experienced the greatest wage hike. We've seen the work participation rate go up, the unemployment rate go to record lows, and most benefited are the Latinos, women, and black sector. And on top of that, the opportunity zones have also created incredible opportunities. Hey, funny how they name that, for urban America, which tends to be mostly black America. And I do want to get into the black vote in America in a conversation. However, 508-871-7000 to join the conversation, just dial it up like Dawn did in Stoughton. Good morning, Dawn. Thanks for listening,
Yes,
and thanks for
good
calling.
morning.
I didn't get
Good morning, Jerry.
my weekly dose of Dawn for a couple of weeks now. I'm feeling neglected.
Well, I called in last week. Are you getting forgetful? Are you
to me,
Joe?
though,
Hello,
you didn't.
Joe. How many fingers am I holding up, Joe?
You called into Gary Goldman at Business, Politics, and Lifestyle, not me.
Are you sure?
I'm positive. I got the tape.
Just remember, you and Mr. Biden are separated only by your last names.
This is true. This is true. What's on your mind, Don?
Well, I have two quick points to bring up, seeing how Joe Biden wants to take away our AK-47, 14s, 19s, and
Hey,
everything
man.
else.
Hey, you dog-faced pony. No, I didn't say that.
Well, here's one point. The 1968 Gun Control Act. I mean, this was jammed through Congress by that evil Democrat, LBJ. Now, in that law, if you read it closely, it says that you must be in compliance with not only federal law, but also state and local laws. So the state can take and infringe any rights secured by the act of Congress, and even your localities can do the same thing also. Now, this is problematic because the Supreme Court has ruled many times that no American must obey two masters. In other words, it's not this and this. It's one or the other. So for the federal government, I mean, basically what I'm saying is the 1968 Gun Control Act is unconstitutional because it makes the act of Congress superfluous, and it seconds it to the states and local authorities. If they choose not to recognize the rights in the federal gun control laws, then you have no rights. So
But Don,
why has Congress...
Don, you seem to know a lot about this issue. I do not know very much about the 1968 Gun Control Act. But doesn't federal law typically supersede state and local law? And can you have state and local laws that are in conflict with federal laws?
Well, no, Jerry, you are correct. Under Article 6 of the U.S. Constitution, the Supremacy Clause, it states that the laws and constitutions in the states contrary to the Constitution notwithstanding. In other words, anything that conflicts with the Constitution or acts of Congress has no standing. But yet, in this 1968 gun control law, Jerry, it gives the law gives standing to the states and local authorities, to which they can't because the Constitution says not even Congress can do this. So the law is superfluous. You either obey one master and one law, or you don't obey any of them. But no, you're absolutely correct, Jerry. There is a supremacy clause.
Right. So
And
if it's go ahead. I'm sorry, Don. You go.
No, go ahead, Jerry.
No, so I was going to
change
say
topic.
if a state did pass a law then that was in conflict with the federal law, then although the 1968 Gun Control Act, from what you're saying, would say that you have to be in compliance with federal, state, and local, but if there were a state or a local law that were in conflict with the federal law, would it make that law just moot?
Yes, it would, Jerry, which is so confusing to me. Why would Congress say that states and local authorities can supersede the authority of Congress when even Congress cannot do that because the Constitution states that it cannot do that?
Right.
I'm just blown away by the insanity. Now, quickly on my second point, in Massachusetts, you are required to take and store your firearms properly. I saw a picture from 2017. A gentleman in Cohasset, excuse me, a gentleman in Cohasset had his guns confiscated because they weren't properly stored, and the police were just throwing his gun collection in the back of a pickup truck. Brownings, Remingtons, Winchesters, just getting tossed in the back of a pickup truck by the Cohasset police. So in other words, they were basically destroying his firearms because of a paper crime. Nobody's rights were violated by the improper storage, but the cops were destroying thousands of dollars worth of firearms. Well, the point I'm making is that there's a prohibition in the Constitution that says no unfunded mandates. So, Jerry, Joe, the government cannot mandate you to buy something, to expend your money for a service or a product under law if you cannot deduct that off your taxes. That's an unfunded mandate. That is so unconstitutional, Joe and Jerry, you have to go 10 universes over to see how far out of the Constitution it is. But Massachusetts does it. And the reason why I'm jumping on this is I was trying to find out if toilet paper is taxed has a sales tax or not, because so many people are buying it. I guess Massachusetts is rolling in dough if it is taxed. But I came across gun safes and other appliances that you put on your firearms. Well, they're tax exempt, but it's an unfunded mandate. If you own a gun, you have to buy these articles also, but you cannot deduct the cost off your taxes, Jerry and Joe. It's an unfunded mandate. It's unconstitutional, but nobody cares. What do you think of that?
Joe?
Oh, well, I've had this conversation before, and I agree 100%. Because they look at the unfunded mandate aspect there. I mean, that was the argument in Obamacare, right? It was the first time that the government said you have to buy this, and then you had the Supreme Court do contortion to make it constitutional, knowing full well that it was unconstitutional, and now we've seen some reversals on that because the government can't do that. That's the whole point of that clause. And
then, Joe, the Supreme Court came out and stated that the tax that you are forced to pay if you don't have it was neither a direct tax or an indirect tax.
That's another
mandatory, and it wasn't a uniform, voluntary, indirect.
Right. I think, Don, relative to the Second Amendment and people, having weapons in their house, I think, number one, it's probably a pretty good idea that we leave the Second Amendment alone. But I also think it's probably a pretty good idea that people who do have weapons in their house, especially somebody who has a pickup truck full of weapons in their house, as you were describing this individual with the Cohasset police, I think that it's probably a pretty good idea that they do have them secured, so that
from what I understand, Jerry, this gentleman had the majority of the firearms security. He might have brought one or two in and had them, quote, unsecured, and for some reason something happened, and the cops came in, opened the safes, and took those guns and just threw them in the back of the pickup truck.
Well, I like the idea of guns being put in a safe place. I like the idea of that, for two reasons. Number one, you may have kids in a house, things like that. And then number two, houses get broken into, and you don't want somebody breaking into a house and having easy access to these weapons that can be then, sold or used in other crimes and all this stuff. It seems like it's a matter of good public policy that we probably have weapons in houses that, are mandated to have some type of storage. Now, I will tell you, if we do have that mandate, I don't have any big issue with somebody deducting from the taxes the cost of, compliance to that mandate. Yeah, I don't have a big issue with that at all. But I do like the idea of there being some type of laws relative to the storage of the weapons once they're in your house. They shouldn't just be lying on somebody's kitchen table, loaded guns.
If you take the action apart so it can't be used, but you haven't stored it anywhere, then it's useless because you've disassembled it.
No, I know that, and that probably is okay. I think I'd be on board with that. But you might walk into somebody's house, and they may be in there, having a couple of cocktails with a loaded gun on their kitchen table,
like they used to do back in the 1700s at every tavern when the framers were there.
Yeah,
exactly. Jerry,
except it took 12 minutes to reload that one shot. Right?
Those firearms were deadly.
And much of it too depends upon Don. I've always thought this, and as you know, Don, I know you've listened to my program and other programs. As you know, I was actually a cop for 5 years. Much of this, too, I think depends upon your access to police departments. Like, I live in a very built-up area, And I live, maybe 1 mile from our police department. And every day I see cruisers going up and down our street. And I know that if something happened and I dialed 911, that the cops would be there in a matter of minutes. Now, my wife grew up in the Midwest, and her grandparents, her maternal grandparents, they had a big ranch. And I mean a really big ranch. And so if they had called the cops, it very well, I don't know, I'm making this up, but it might have taken them 15 minutes to get there. I think they're probably pretty good candidates to have a small. Well, I don't know about gates, but to have a small arsenal. Because there isn't a terrific response time to police departments. So I think much of it depends upon where you live as well.
Well, that goes back to when seconds count, police are minutes away, and that's always been the point that people have made on the gun argument is the same logic that you have a fire extinguisher under your kitchen sink.
Sure.
Because the fire department, as though they'll be there in record time, you need to do something. And it's the same thing. Like I grew up in a house, obviously, with guns. My father was a police officer entire life. So we as kids growing up thought nothing of a gun in the house. And my father would come home, and the first thing he would do is remove his weapon and put it in the top drawer. Yes, there were other guns in the house. They were all secured in a vault. The gun that he carried home and that he would put on every time he left was always accessible. It wasn't, he didn't actually lock that gun up every time he came home, because if he went out to the store in 8 minutes after he came home, because mom said, go to the store and get this, the gun went back on. He put his weapon on his side like you would put your wallet in your pocket.
Yeah. Well, also remember this, Joe and Jerry. The Supreme Court in the 1850s ruled that law enforcement is not obligated or mandated to protect anyone from crime. And this goes to a Mr. Pottle from Boston who went to Washington County, Maryland, to take over a bankrupt company down there. He was surrounded by unpaid workers. He was kidnapped and extorted of $2,500 in the presence of Sheriff South and a dozen deputies who did nothing to protect him. And when Mr. Pottle sued the sheriff, the Supreme Court said nobody has standing to sue law enforcement because there is no constitutional mandate
obligation
for the police to protect anyone. You're on your own.
Right.
So when Massachusetts says the police are there to protect you, they're lying.
Who was it? Richard Daley, Sr., who said the police are not here to stop disorder. Remember that famous line during the 1968 Democratic Convention?
Yes.
He said the police are here to preserve disorder.
Only the pigs should have all the guns, but we don't trust the pigs, say the Democrats.
Oh, those Chicago politicians.
I think for the most part, though, that may be what happened. But I think that if there were any police officers listening right now, most cops would say that we're here to protect you from crime.
Well, I think most,
and I'm sure that's what your father did, Joe, and mine is an FBI agent.
Like a fireman doesn't think twice about running into the burning building. Most police officers do not think twice about running into a dangerous situation.
No, understood, guys. Yeah. But the government cannot say you cannot protect yourself.
Right.
First and foremost, you protect yourself first. You cannot depend on anybody else because you, as the Supreme Court said, it's only a 7-page ruling. South versus Maryland, 59 U.S. page 396. And Mr. Pottle was out $2,500, and he was kidnapped, and there was nothing he could do because the police were not obligated to protect him.
I'm wondering on that case, did he go after the ransom and kidnappers civilly him directly, or was there any
that's what they
follow-up?
told him. Even here, Joe, under Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 12, Section 5, Capital D, the Attorney General and the DAs do not have to prosecute any case. And if they don't prosecute it, then you have to go after them civilly.
We've got a rogue DA in Boston who says she's not going to prosecute small crimes, right? And now, what do we find going on?
$1,000 that they steal from you, we're not going to prosecute you.
And they've done this in other parts of the country. And then you can go online, you can find all these store, retail security footage of
California
people walking in and just taking stuff off the shelves. And go ahead, call the police.
And Don, doesn't that illustrate the problem that we have today? Because you said that was in the 1850s.
1850s, correct?
Yeah, because if my memory serves
and
me,
that was when you couldn't call the police or even telegraph them. Well, maybe you could telegraph them
Well,
or
if
send
my
up a smoke signal.
yeah, if my memory
The court
serves,
says you protect yourself. If
Right.
if you're going someplace that might be dangerous, you go under arms.
Yeah.
But wait, Massachusetts says you have no right to keep and bear arms.
Jerry,
so
you're going
I'm
to say,
confused. Does the Supreme Court rule or does Massachusetts rule?
Jerry, you're going to say you remember this when you were a kid?
no. I was going to say, if my memory serves me correctly, I think in the 1850s, I think that's about the same time that Nancy Pelosi and Joe Biden were first
That is correct, yeah.
elected,
And-
now
and what is it that,
illustrates all the problems today. They have been there
that
just simply too
Democrat out in
long.
California, Swalwell, says that if you don't turn your
right.
guns in, we have nuclear bombs to get them from you.
Oh, my goodness. Is that... I'm so glad he got out of the
yeah,
race
he
so
says
early.
we got the nuclear bombs here.
Is he the biggest jamoke you've met? I mean, they
But I
keep
mean,
putting
the
him on.
insanity. I mean, can that man not read? A 3-year-old in kindergarten has a better understanding of the Constitution than most Democrats do.
Yeah.
But I mean, they're going to use nuclear weapons if you don't turn your guns in.
Yeah.
Who in their right or wrong mind could ever say that, Jerry?
Yeah,
It's pretty extreme.
It's very crazy. So Sewall, he's a California Democrat, so that kind of tells you where you're coming from right from the beginning.
Well, it's as bad as the Democrats here. My cousin Michael Chesner was killed in Weymouth. He was
Yes.
the cop that was killed there.
Yeah.
And talking to Senator Moore, I asked Senator Moore, "Do you believe that murderers of police should be put to death?" And Senator Moore starts waxing eloquently. Well, 30 years ago, somebody was put in jail and they might have killed. And I says, no. This man was caught immediately. Should he be put to death? And of course, I got no answer from Senator Moore.
All right, Don, thank you for the call. I got to
Thank
hold
you,
you
Don.
there. Always appreciate it. All right, we're going to take a quick call, one more call, and then we'll go into what do we got today? Handling change. It's a great segment coming up there. Gene, good morning. Thanks for holding. You're on with Jerry and myself.
Do you want me to hold on? Because I have so much. I mean, Joe, it is wonderful.
All right,
Everything
Gene,
that
you hold
hit
on, and I'll take us into break, and we'll come back to you on the other side of this. One thing I wanted to point out, this whole coronavirus, washing your hands, right? All this is going on. Meanwhile, you can literally go to San Francisco and parts of L.A., and people are defecating in the street. It is so bad in Nancy Pelosi's district that once a week they have to power wash the streets, right? And this whole thing now, I mean, I do not understand the run on toilet paper. The coronavirus doesn't make you use more. I don't understand what is the mindset, what is the thought process that I have to run out and get all of this toilet paper. The other part of it is the hand sanitizer. You can go to my briefcase right now. I have wipes. I've had wipes in my briefcase probably 20 plus years, and usually a little bottle of sanitizer just as a normal everyday thing. I don't know why all of a sudden it's kind of scary to think that all these people who are washing their hands now on a regular basis and using sanitizer, you needed the coronavirus to make you do this? You should have been doing it. I have the thing on my thing that says, here's Bob, right? Bob doesn't panic. Bob listens to scientists. He doesn't listen to the media. And Bob washes his hands several times a day because A, he's not gross, and B, he believes in simple hygiene. Be like Bob. This is ridiculous. The toilet paper part, I don't understand that at all. Why is there a run on that?
Yeah, I think coronavirus aside, I think it's probably a pretty good practice. 30 seconds. Wash your hands a few times a day. Yeah. And I think this whole thing, they're counseling everybody to rub their hands with alcohol. And here we have, the biggest event of the year where everybody has alcohol in their hands, the St. Patrick's Day Parade, and they cancel it.
The only tip before I go to break is when you do wash your hands, and a couple of the doctors were saying this yesterday on the 5, the fingertips, folks, right? People wash the palms very closely and they roll their hands. The doctor's saying, you got to remember, it's the fingertips. You got to wash those too, because remember, how many times a day do you punch in your code and you're touching keypads that everybody who's touched money and everything else in the world has touched that keypad? Wash your fingertips. I actually usually use my pen to hit the thing. I usually never
break anytime.
But all right, so Gene, hold on. We're going to take a break. We're going to go into handling change. We're going to hear from Paul Stankus of the Cantiani Insurance Group, and he has a great tips about, I think it's umbrella policies. So stick with us. I'm Joe Mangiacotti with Jerry Doherty. We'll be back on the other side.
This is Wes Oliver with Prestige Home Mortgage for Handling Change. Join us for Handling Change today at 7:30 or on the web at handlingchange.info.
Good morning and welcome to Handling Change from the Cantiani Insurance Studios. I'm Joe Mangiacotti, and Paul Stankus of the Cantiani Agency joins us this week. Protecting your home, auto, business, and possessions can be challenging. Paul can help you handle those challenges. Good morning, Paul.
Good morning, Joe. Thanks for having me.
Welcome to the show again. 2020, here we are. How are things at Cantiani Agency?
Everything is going great.
Fantastic. Let's jump right into this. I was thinking, because, you watch a lot of commercials out there, right? It's almost become more about the characters in these insurance commercials than the insurance coverage. And we've heard a lot of terms like bundling, and I think people get the whole concept of that, and we understand that. But there is something out there I hear once in a while, and it's called the umbrella coverage or the umbrella policy. And I'm not sure everybody gets that. Do you think you could explain that for us?
Sure. An umbrella policy is a policy that provides additional liability coverage over and beyond what's on the underlying home or auto policy.
Oh, fantastic. So this is above and beyond your policy that you already have on everything.
Gives you additional protection if someone is trying to come after your assets.
So this would be placed on there because it's a way of upping your coverage, or is there another benefit to it?
The policy itself basically does just give additional liability coverage. Your auto or home policy per se will only give you a certain level of coverage. The umbrella policy, something you can purchase to provide additional coverage to make sure that you're covered appropriately based on what you have for assets.
Well, it sounds like it's something you should have, and it's a benefit to have. So let me ask you first, why don't most people have one then?
Well, in the insurance world, most people won't purchase something if they're not fully informed about it. And a lot of people don't know exactly what an umbrella policy can provide for them.
So it's a classic, you can't ask for what you don't know exists.
Correct.
And then, of course, if you don't know the benefits and the reasons for it, you wouldn't know to ask for it. Let me ask you this then. The cost involved, is it going to be a substantial increase to your premium if you have an umbrella policy?
Umbrella policies are fairly inexpensive. For the coverage that you're obtaining, the cost is usually pennies on the dollar. Umbrella policies usually start with $1 million liability limits, but we have some carriers that will go up to $10 million umbrella policies.
How many items do you need to have, or how many policies do you need in place that it would actually work, that you can get one of these umbrella policies?
As a standard, most of our companies require that they write your underlying home and auto policy as far as a personal umbrella. We do have a company that does offer umbrella coverage if you just have an auto, but for the most part, they're looking for you to have a home as well as auto. But the umbrella will cover rental properties as well as boats, motorcycles, and any other toys that you might have.
Well, this is all fantastic. It sounds like you get a lot of benefit and protection with an umbrella policy.
The umbrella policy itself is going to provide the additional coverage, but it's also going to provide you representation in the event that you're being sued. Someone's trying to come after all of your assets.
That's a scary situation to be in. So are you suggesting that everybody that has your standard policies, home, even rental, auto, or commercial policy should inquire about this if they've never had this conversation?
I think it's something to definitely consider and ask about. An umbrella policy, like I said, doesn't cost much, and you may not need it, but you may feel more comfortable having it. And also, if you have more than just a home and auto, once you have a few rental properties, in the event you're being sued, someone can come after just about anything. So you want to make sure that you have an umbrella to go over all that and give you the proper protection.
And you mentioned the sue part a couple of times, so I guess that's really one of the huge benefits of an insurance, or rather an umbrella policy, is you just have that much more against litigious society that we're in.
That's correct.
All right, fantastic. So, of course, people can reach you and any of the good folks down at Cantiani Insurance any business day. All right, Paul. Well, thank you for stopping in. Fantastic information. And again, anybody can give you guys a call down at the agency anytime, right?
Absolutely.
All right. And thank you for joining us for Handling Change from the Cantiani Insurance Studios. Join us each week at 7:30 as we give you the tools to handle the changes in your life, and visit us at handlingchange.info. You can find Cantiani Insurance online at cantianiagency.com or call 508-791-2088. For Paul, I'm Joe Mangiacotti.
This is the Joe Mangiacotti Show. We are the show you want to know. It's time to talk to Joe.
All right, folks. Welcome back to the final segment here of the Joe Mangiacotti Show on AM 830 WCRN and AM 730 WACE. Don't forget, we are live streaming on our Facebook page, which is pretty cool. All it is a camera thrown up in the studio. You get to peek into the studio. Teddy, the Wonder Pup, isn't with me today. He's home sleeping. But I do have Jerry Doherty in studio. And he is the host of Making Money Last Monday through Friday from 11 a.m. to noon, and the owner of Boston Independence Group. And Jerry, remind folks how to get a hold of you at Boston Independence, which I love the name. Right, anything Yankee, Boston like that, Boston Independence Group. It's very John Hancocky. It gives you this feeling of, solid old money.
Here's your financial independence. And our telephone number is also very patriotic.
Absolutely.
It's 877-772-1776. So 877-772-1776.
Absolutely. Gene, thanks for holding. Before we run out of time, if you don't mind, I wanted to play actually Joe Biden's, not the hits, Shane, but the other one, the gaffes, because I put this together, and these aren't the ones going back years ago. I have that one listed, here, saved on a file. But this is, and the one that's really interesting that I want to listen to is when he says, talking about the Constitution, and he says, we the people in one nation, and he that Democratic stop kicked in, and he wouldn't say under God. You could hear him, Gene, because I'm thinking of you. He would not say one nation under God. He goes one nation under. Well, you know what it says there, and that's that Democratic thing of they're not allowed to say God. I mean, in the 2008 Democratic convention, they booed God. Right? Go ahead and play the Biden gaffes.
We hold these truths to be self-evident. All men and women created by you know the thing. And I have a simple proposition here. I'm here to ask you for your help. Where I come from, you don't get far unless you ask. My name's Joe Biden. I'm a Democratic candidate for the United States Senate. Look me over. If you like what you see, help out. If not, vote for the other body. Give me a look, though, okay? Look, tomorrow's Superstar Tuesday, and I want to thank you all. By the way, this is my little sister, Valerie, and I'm Jill's husband. Oh, no, you switched on me. This is my wife. This is my sister. They switched on me. Poor kids are just as bright and just as talented as white kids. I sit on the stand, and it get hot. I got hairy legs that turn blonde in the sun. Why attack Sanders? Why? You're getting nervous, man. Calm down. It's okay. 3,900 of them right here in the state of South Carolina. Give me a break. Anybody who can throw coal into a furnace can learn how to program, for God's sake. 1.2 billion. So you go ahead and you stack spaghetti sauce at a store and in a supermarket. You control the guy or the woman who brings out the carts on a forklift. I'm looking forward to appointing the first African-American woman to the United States Senate. 150 million people have been killed since 2007 when Bernie voted to exempt the gun manufacturers from life.
That's enough, Shane. You get the point, right? He couldn't bring himself to say God. He compares that the poor kids or black kids are just as smart as white kids. The hairy leg thing was weird, but he was way off. 150 million people. I'm sure he meant 150,000. He didn't catch that. And a point to the Senate. I think he meant vice presidency, since the president doesn't appoint people to the Senate, right? Even if it's an opening, it's the governor who does. So all these things, but these are all recent things, and this is what's leading to. I think what we were talking about in hour one is our concerns about whether or not he's even up for the job. But Gene, what was on your mind? You got a couple minutes here, dear.
What was on my mind? I'm telling you,
that's a loaded question, man.
Well, first of all, I'm thanking you guys. Jerry, thank you for being there. Thank you guys. Just thank WCRN, everybody, for letting us see the hypocrisy. I mean, I cried the other day for everything happening, And at different times, I cry about the whole world and what's happening. And it is the God factor, and nobody wants it, but you try to get it out there, and you want people, number one, to go to heaven. Because if we realize that the purpose in life is souls, that God created this world, and that's how arrogant they are. They don't want to acknowledge that for power and money, because if they acknowledge God, then they can't do what they're doing. In other words, get her out of here. How many places didn't want me around? Then you found out all of the things that are going on and the evil and the corruption, and but get her out. Call the cops in a church, Joe, okay? Because now they don't preach the gospel and tell people you have to stop and repent. And if I had to
all right, Gene, we're all over the map, so bring it into the point.
I think we're all over the map because it's all over the map today.
Yeah,
Joe.
this is true.
I'm trying to cover so many bases here. You know, I mean, I know you guys are doing it also. All right, you know what? Let's start with guns. They want to take away guns. I called the chief in Auburn because he was in the article, and it was talked about, and I didn't get him, but I did leave a message and thanking him that he took a stand for us being armed if we want to be. Reality.
Yeah.
It's the truth.
Well, look, there are a lot of chiefs who understand the Second Amendment and understand that it's there for a reason, that it is settled law, and this is always an interesting thing because the left, right? If you ever start to talk about putting a little restriction on abortion, right? What do we hear? That's settled law. You can't touch it. But they're very okay with attacking the Second Amendment, which is very much settled law. But there are a lot of police chiefs who basically say, it's absolutely everybody's right to be able to carry. And we have, Massachusetts especially, has those guidelines in on, there's a process to get permitted. And that permit here in Massachusetts, as you know, Jerry, is to carry a concealed weapon. So that A, you're supposed to carry it concealed. B, that's what the license is for, because actually there is the court ruling in Massachusetts that you can carry if it's actually exposed. So the permit is to carry concealed. So there are a lot of good chiefs out there. There are some chiefs that make it very difficult, but for the most part, including the Worcester Police Chief, Gemma has said, it's really not up to me. You're allowed to carry. I'm just administrating the licensing process. And unless you fall under one of the statutes that say you can't carry, I'm going to issue you it just like I would if you came in for a marriage license, a fishing license, or any other license. Unless there's a reason by the law that I can't give it to you, I have to give it to you.
Yeah. And, Gene, don't give up hope. I know you at the opening you said that, you were almost crying the other day. I think with the direction of things the direction that things are going in right now, I think there's a lot of hope out there. It's like Winston Churchill said, never, never, never quit. You can't do that. So don't give up. Keep on pushing the ball in the right direction, closer and closer to the goal line. And eventually, hopefully, we'll get across it all on all of these issues.
Well, I'm telling you, Jerry, that's what we do. And it's last call for souls. I know you guys cover all the bases. I used to sing last call for alcohol, and they stuffed money in me. Now, how crazy is that? I'm going to ask you guys. How crazy is that? They loved
Gene,
me
you
when I
never
was
feel to leave me with a visual that I can't get out of my mind for a couple of days. I got to tell you that. All right.
Well, that's how God uses us. Amen. So our purpose in life, I know you guys know it, and it is last call for souls. The Bible prophecies are here. My cousin, the cop, got on last week and said it's Countdown Armageddon. And if you're listening, I said, oh, my God, my heart, I was jumping up and down because once again, Christians tell people, get their souls ready. If they really love, the most important thing and the only thing that's going to last is your soul. Do you really want to burn in hell? I mean, think about it, Jerry. Think about it, Joe. Think about it. I know, Shane, we've talked about it. You know. I mean, this is serious business. I don't do enough, number one, but I've tried. And from the time I got saved, I never knew I had to do prophecy, though. That was something I begged God not
Gene,
to do.
you
But
do
I've
a lot.
done
Don't
it.
say that you haven't done a lot. You have done a lot. You always have done a lot. You are activists. You make the phone calls when they need to be made. You call these politicians out. I mean, look at you called the chief because he was in an article in Auburn. If everybody was as active and participated like you do, we'd be a lot better off. And on that Armageddon point, and thank you for the call, let's look at this for a moment, because I was looking at this stuff over that we're dealing with COVID-19, Jerry. And of course, the coronavirus has been around a long time. But if we look back, right, we had SARS in 2004, avian flu, right, which we called it the bird flu. Then, and that was then we called it the bird flu because it came from birds. Then 2010, we had the H1N1, the swine flu, right, which we called a flu. Then 2012 was MERS. In 14, Ebola. 16, Zika. 18, Ebola again. And now 2020, we have Corona. So one thing's interesting. Every election year, there's some kind of flu, right, going around. It's interesting that this time around, have you noticed we didn't call it a flu of any type? And I wonder how much that plays into the psyche of the panic, because when you have the bird flu, right, or the swine flu, I think that a little bit we go, hey, it's a flu. We get the flu every year, and we have thousands of people die from the flu, and we didn't assign this a name, right? We even, when we decided to give it a name, we gave it the name COVID-19. We didn't call it the bat flu or the snake flu or whatever that other animal is. I don't even know what it is. The anteater or something they're trying to say came from that as well. Or we didn't call it the China flu. We called it COVID-19, and we left the term flu out. And do you think that plays into panic at all by not having the name flu in there?
Well, perhaps it does, but I do think, Joe, this is it's a pretty serious thing that's going on with this COVID-19. I think it's serious stuff regardless of what we call it.
Yeah, exactly.
So
I'm just saying that the psyche of it, that we don't have the flu for some reason from day one. This has taken on a different feel. Now, I don't know if it's the media hyping it up for whatever reasons, but there's no question, and Dr. Fauci has said this several times, look, the restricting flight from China early was a good move. I know he got a lot of criticism when the president did that.
Yes.
He also has done a lot of great things as far as pulling the private sector together. He ordered more I didn't even realize. So apparently there's a shortage of respirators in the country. So he's asked private industry to step up the manufacturing, get more respirators out there. So the criticism that's coming against him, it goes back to it's based on personal dislike for the guy opposed to looking at what the president has actually done and how he's handled this. When you look at these other things I've talked about, I mean, former administrations didn't even acknowledge some of these things until 6 months in, where we had people, a serious number of people have died from it before they kicked in. He's kicked in the state of emergency, which has opened up billions of dollars to deal with this. So overall, what I'm saying is I think that Trump's handling of it has been good. He's done a great job of it, and the criticism he's receiving, I think, is based on who he is and not what he's done.
Yeah, I would agree with you, and I think a lot of people would agree with you on that sentiment as well, Joe. And I think that the good that will come out of this COVID-19, I think the good that will come out of this is that now the United States has policies and procedures that we will follow. We've been hearing for years that one of the threats that we have to this country, a national security threat, is somebody putting some type of germ agent out there in a subway or all of these other god-awful scenarios that people lay out that really could kill people on a mass basis. And now it seems that we are getting controls and policies and procedures in place that didn't exist during previous administrations.
Right.
Now we understand how rapid closings of airport, how monitoring who's coming into the country, and all these other procedures that, as we laid out earlier, the public and private partnership to combat this thing. So I think the next time around, there is going to be a much more rapid, much more effective response to these type of issues. That's the good, I really do believe, that will come out of COVID-19. This, too, shall pass. I mean, we will get through this in a matter of weeks, whether it's 8 weeks, whether it's 12 weeks, whether it's 6 months, we will get through this.
And the fact that we will bring our stockpiles, we will bring our percentage of manufacturing for important things like vaccinations and antibiotics and even surgical masks back into the country. And we'll start treating that like we treat other emergency or wartime supplies.
National security issues.
Yeah. All right. We're coming to the end of today's show. I'm just looking at Candace Owen has tweeted out China has closed down its last coronavirus hospital. Not enough new cases to support them. So there's a slowdown in China happening. Italy is hit hard, experts say, because they have the oldest population in Europe. Average age of those that have died is 81 years old. And, of course, don't forget we had the Italian official saying a month ago that this whole thing is racist, and the best thing that you can do to the Italian people, go out and randomly hug an Asian. That was actually said. A month later, the bodies are stacking up in Italy. 40 so that didn't work out too well for you. But quick, Jerry, people can listen to you Monday through Friday, 11 to noon, and get a hold of you at Boston Independence Group.
Yes, at 877-772-1776.
Excellent. And you'll be back on the air Monday morning, technically, 11 o'clock.
I'll actually be calling into the Peter Blue show.
Right. Yeah, and you also have the other show, right?
And yes, and then I also have a show on Sunday morning on Talk 1200 from 8 to 9 o'clock in the morning.
Excellent. All right. And then, of course, I'll see you next or Thursday.
Yes,
10 seconds.
Political Thursday. Shane, are we good? All right, folks, that wraps up this edition. Tomorrow morning, 6 o'clock, Faith in America, and I'll join you at 7 a.m. for the Joe Mangiacotti Show. Have a great weekend, folks.
It's time to go out with Joe.
Welcome to this edition of Out with Joe, brought to you by Nothing Bun Cakes in White City Plaza, Shrewsbury. I'm Joe Mangiacotti from the Cantiani Insurance Studios. Well, as St. Patrick's Day draws closer, we'll soon be searching for that green shamrock shirt, scanning Pinterest for easy corned beef recipes, and picking up a little whiskey or Guinness to get ready for the celebration. Sure, we love to celebrate St. Patrick's Day, but where did these traditions come from? And how are we celebrating them today? Well, we've picked up some of the most interesting St. Patrick's Day facts and tidbits for you to share in your party conversations. Well, St. Patrick's Day is an Irish national holiday with banks, stores, and businesses closing for the day. The first St. Patrick's Day celebration in the United States was held in Boston in 1737, and shamrocks are the national flower or emblem of Ireland. And the color of St. Patrick's Day was originally blue. Wearing green has become a staple of St. Patrick's Day, but the holiday was originally associated with the color blue. It's thought that the shift to green happened because of Ireland's nickname, the Emerald Isle. The green in the Irish flag and the shamrock, or clover. Green ribbons and shamrocks were worn as early as the 17th century. Beer is one of the most widely consumed beverages on St. Patrick's Day. No kidding, right? Legend says that each leaf of the clover has a meaning: hope, faith, love, and luck. 1962 marked the first time Chicago dyed the river green for St. Patrick's Day. And Chicago does dye the river green for a few hours to celebrate St. Patrick's. Guinness is one of the most popular drinks on St. Patrick's Day, and there are some great recipes on outwithjoe.com. Shamrock shakes are also very popular, very tasty too. There are 34.7 million U.S. residents with Irish ancestry. This number is more than 7 times the population of Ireland itself, and there are 5 times the population of Ireland who claim Irish descension in the Boston area. And the real St. Patrick wasn't